Well, I definitely enjoyed meeting you at that particular moment in time. Where was
It was
that?
fun, right? It was a
Yeah,
good time.
that was awesome. Have you acted in a bunch of pieces?
So not really. Like that's the thing. At the time, like she was doing a reshoot. I had already acted in her thing before. Yeah, so I hadn't actually acted in a lot of things before.
Oh yeah.
Like small pieces here and there, but nothing crazy. I've done like student films. That was her student film, obviously.
Are you in school with her?
Yeah, so we met in class. Like, so we went to school together. So yeah.
Oops. Um, you weren't supposed to see
I just
that.
wanted before we start talking, like, so like, what are you trying to do here? Like, what are you?
Have you checked out my website or anything?
I've seen your Twitter. I think I've seen your Instagram. I know that you write like science fiction, but I don't know much else like beyond that.
Um, I do interviews with creative people, artists,
Okay, cool.
and basically the most enjoyable part of being on that set was when I first met you
Really?
because we
Thank you.
had we had like a little bit of conversation. And if you've ever listened to my podcast, I mean that's basically all I do is just talk about why people do what they do. I
That's awesome.
followed you and I followed the director, and I'm like, oh man, if one of these people follows me back, I'll have an opportunity to talk to a New York City artist, an
Yeah,
actress. I went to University of South Florida. I got my degree in English, but I almost got my degree in theater as well. So I hung out with a bunch of theater geeks.
that's
I love
awesome.
them. I love them. I think they're the coolest people on the face of the planet, but I can't be one. I was in one play and it was miserable.
What was your experience doing like theater? So I did theater. I did some theater in high school, but I kind of fell off. Like that was film acting that we met obviously on, but I love
It's,
theater.
it's a different world, isn't it? Film acting.
Yeah, it's totally different.
Did you, so you did theater in high school?
I did it for a few years, maybe like my freshman year, sophomore year, maybe junior year. I don't remember, but I did it for like a little bit in high school.
It was in one play called "Tis Pity." She's a whore. It's a John. No, seriously, it's "Tis Pity." She's a whore. That's the name of the play, and it's a John Ford classic. So it's like Shakespeare, and then John Ford was writing right after Shakespeare. So it's that dense, purple, gross, theatrical stuff. And I played a
Yeah,
character called Ricadetto, and he had half of the play. I was the comedic villain, and every time I was on stage, I just felt bad for the audience. I just felt bad for them. It's like, man, I am doing such a bad job. It was such a quick turnaround. Like rehearsals were only like a week long or 2 weeks long. So I had to memorize this entire part. My only acting gig besides the one that I met you on. And you
is the
saw
one you
how,
did theater.
what was that?
The only acting gig you ever did was when you did theater.
Yeah, that one and the one I did
Wow,
with
that's
you.
surprising. So what made you want to get into what made you want to take that job, for example? Like why
The
do you want
job that Lizette offered
to?
me.
Hmm.
Yeah, oh God, I wanted to experience that too. I wanted to see what I didn't know what to expect, honestly. Man, I'll tell you, I don't know what you're interviewing me. So I'm going to turn it back around on you in a
Yeah.
second. But I will tell you this, when I got the script and I read through what I was supposed to read, I'm like, I just volunteered to be in a porn. This is a porn. It's, and it wasn't though. I mean, it makes complete artistic sense to be there and to see how things were being directed. And at one point she gave me a direction and it really put an awkward air on the entire scene, but that was perfect for a father looking at her daughter. I mean, you obviously are being portrayed a certain way in the scene, and I have to see you in that way, and I have to be able to handle it. And I think her direction put me in an awkward state, so I was able to pull myself back from that and avoid doing it. You know what I mean? I think a family member, that's the normal reaction.
Yeah, absolutely. She's a really talented director, and it is funny because when you first look at that script, I can see why you would be kind of like taken aback by what you're expected to do, but it does make a lot of sense once you
And the
actually get into
boyfriend comes out of the closet or something. It's like,
it.
my God, what is going on here? But yeah, it was just such a great experience working on that set and seeing how it happens. I was actually depressed going home. I was like, I want to do that more.
Yeah,
It's
that's
fun. I mean, it's
great.
it's
Yeah.
awesome. I felt like I'd be on spot or something with the cameras on me, but it just kind of disappears. Like you get into the words and you're able to say what you need to say.
That's the hardest part, definitely, is like I know they have all these different, like I said, I don't really consider myself an actor. I consider that I like to act, but I don't do it enough to really call myself that.
What do you
Um,
call yourself?
I don't know. I like to make things. I think I'm really still finding out like what it is I like to do best. I love acting. I'd like to do it more. I love filmmaking. That's something that I think I'm even more passionate about. But I do love being on camera. I love being on set, number one, I do love acting, being dramatic.
It's exciting.
But yeah, I have all these. Go ahead.
I was in what's it called? The central casting for the
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah, I've done that. I've been on one TV show. The election or something like that. I don't know. It's a Netflix show. It was so much fun. They sat me at the head of the table, and I know I'm gonna be like someplace on TV because the person they had in front of me was a trans woman. She was real
Yeah.
beautiful, striking, and we were interacting. I was handing her the paper. So I know I'm like involved in this scene. You know the guy from Terminator 2, the black dude, the one who
I don't know. I
finds.
don't know what term. I should have seen it, but I never saw it.
I gotta go. I just I
Really?
have something
There's so
real
many
important. I just remembered. You
people
have to
are
watch.
so disappointed with me as like a film student, like a filmmaker. Like there's so many big movies, even like popular ones like that I've just never seen. But
How
anyway,
come? How
yeah,
come?
I'm from Terminator 2.
How come you haven't seen Terminator 2?
To be honest, it's just not something that's like attractive to me. I like thrillers. I like
That's
most genres.
Terminator. That's Terminator. You gotta watch it. It's so
I don't
awesome.
know. It's not attractive to me. It seems like too much.
It's
I'm not
loud. I mean, it's
yeah,
loud. It's
yeah,
not Transformers Michael Bay loud, but it's incredibly loud.
yeah. And that's the thing. Like I'm not like I'll watch them, but I've never been really attracted to like, and maybe I'm like completely off base with this, but superhero movies, big like action
Yeah,
blockbuster movies is not
I
for me.
agree. You have to be a certain type of person to enjoy that stuff. And they're
Yeah,
not good. They're not good at all. They're really
there's so
bad.
many that are really bad. Yeah,
And it's really funny too. I read an article the other day that discussed why do all these 1980s movies that used to look really good not look good anymore. The special
yeah.
effects really stand out. They're really bad. The quality just really dropped over the last 30 years or whatever. And it just turns out the technology of the television that we watch these movies on gets exponentially better to the point where what was a movie that you were proud of becomes complete and utter garbage. Like you're able to see the cracks in it. You know what I mean? So the superhero movies that are good, I can't watch on TV. They just suck so bad. Star Wars is the same. Yeah, is it Star Wars? Star Wars is the same way. I can't watch it again out of the movie theater.
Yeah. Look, I'm not of the Star Wars generation, so I don't really like I was never like young enough to watch it then and appreciate it, and I've still never been like a Star Wars fan. Like it's just not for me. It's too much. It's
Can't
just
help. I can't help but love it. I really can't help the
yeah.
song. And yeah, when I love it a lot. Like it sucks. It's horrible. It's the worst thing in the entire world. It's not the greatest story, but I still enjoy the act of watching it for the first time in the movie theater. I think it's really enjoyable. Like the Last Jedi supposedly is really bad, and it is really bad. It's got a lot of problems to it. They messed up the story, but watching it was a joy. Thoroughly enjoyed it, and the last one too. I have not been able to sit and watch them again, which I think is indicative of the quality. Right? I mean, when you love a movie, you watch it more than once.
It's funny. I don't know if this is something that you can like relate to at all, but something that I can see people appreciating about something like Star Wars is like the world aspect to it. The fact that it's like its entire own like world, which is probably kind of like transportive in a way or whatever, and you really get drawn into that.
Mhm.
So like I can see maybe people really being into that. I don't know if you
Well,
can
it's
like
it's
relate to
also
that.
very familiar, right? I mean, if you
Yeah.
look at how the religion is kind of shaped or how the people interact or whatnot, you can identify with it because it's not abstract. It's how
Mhm.
you do things or you think or whatnot.
Yeah.
George Lucas was smart, and so is J.K. Rowling because I think they did the same thing. They took very similar, familiar concepts and they interwove them within a narrative. It's really incredibly neat. So,
So,
what what do you want to make, like besides acting? Do you want to write?
so I'm sorry.
Do you
Do
want
I
to
want
write?
to?
Right?
I like I like writing to an extent. I'm lazy. I really am. As like a writer, I'm very lazy, but when I have an idea, like I really enjoy yeah, like writing it down and like indulging in that and little ideas. I don't know. To me, like when I say that I want to be like I consider myself like a filmmaker, I don't know. I'm still at like a short film stage of my life. Like I can't see myself yet like devoting myself to an entire like feature film. That's not something that I see myself doing.
Hmm.
But I don't know. Something that I really like, I'm definitely like a people person, which I think is why I like I don't know, like I like stuff like this. I like working with other people. So yeah, so in that sense, like writing isn't like the most attractive thing to me, but I do also like being in control. So I don't know, like I like making things with other people. I like having conversations and filming them. I think that's like a root of like content, I guess you could say nowadays, that I think is super popular. That is probably like one of my favorite, even just like podcast style stuff. Joe
Oh
Rogan
yeah,
obviously is a huge
Joe
like
Rogan's
that
huge for
kind of
me.
style. It's like
Yeah, I
it's
love
fun.
it.
It's creative in like its own way. So
When you don't
I love
have like you don't have a script going in. We don't have any direction that we have to go in. We can just do whatever we want. Yeah, I really enjoy that a lot. Just getting stuff out because honestly, we wouldn't be able to talk otherwise. You know what I mean? You live wherever you live. We probably wouldn't interact in a bar or whatever because I don't go to bars.
yeah.
I don't talk to people on the street because it makes me
What's the
feel
chance of
weird.
meeting like yeah, what's the chance of us like meeting up like randomly or like even out of chance or whatever? Yeah.
Yeah, I don't even know how I found your stuff to begin with. You know what I mean? I
Yeah.
think I followed you before I even met you, and that's just bizarre in itself. So honestly, we shouldn't even be talking right now.
It's so funny because I do think like I definitely have a tendency to I'm definitely like a social person, like a people person, but I do have a tendency, like most people, to kind of like stick to myself. And so I really do admire like I think it's important to like do the work to actually have like formal conversations with people and like you have to put in work to socialize with people and that's something that like sometimes I fall off on and so I think it's really cool that you're doing that and something I just want to be doing more.
Is it a hardship though to find people to talk to? I would think that you would have it I mean, maybe this is rude, but I would assume that you would have it a little bit easier than most people finding people to talk to or willing to talk to you anyway.
I mean people do people want it I think people do
I
want
mean,
to
it
talk.
comes off as a little rude, but you understand what I'm saying. I mean,
I appreciate that like whatever you mean by that I appreciate it. Yeah, I don't know, I think people do want to talk to me, but I think in the past, especially, like I've been trying to do better recently, and definitely have been inspired by like some people that I know, like maybe even like you right now, who are more open and stuff. But I have a tendency to like let conversations fall off, I think, and just not really like reach out to people all that much because it does take work. And so then like even if I have a pool of people who would want to talk to me, I maybe cut it off myself by just not doing the work or like
yeah.
maintaining relationships and stuff like that.
So do you want people to come to you or do you want to go to people?
Well, I mean, both is nice. I think everybody wants people to come to them. That feels really good, you
That's
know?
why I know you right now is Lizette came to me. I would not have been able to apply for that movie, right? I mean, how do you audition on Where We Found Each Other? She came to
Yeah.
me, involved me in the project. And it's like, I want more of that. Somebody came to me and said, do you want to play a German soldier in a student production? I'm like, yeah. It says that you speak German. I'm like, no, but I lied and said I do. So
That's good. That's really good. It's good till
like,
you get on set, right?
how long could it take to fake a German accent?
How long could it take to learn German?
Exactly. I did take German. I took German 1 and then went to a different school and they made me take it again. And I didn't want to take it again. So I took the test to get out of it and I failed it. Right. So
Yeah.
I took the test again. And in the time that I took the test the second time, there was a German speaker there and she let me copy off her test. So I got to avoid German. So maybe that's a bad thing. My personal development got warped, but I didn't have to take
I mean,
German.
obviously everything's cut off with like coronavirus right now, but
Yeah.
so that's a film that you were going to be like working in or what?
No, it was just one of those emails they sent me. Hey, would you like to do this? I missed it. My
Yeah.
life went through like complete chaos for like 3 weeks. So I missed like a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Getting it back together. And I was like, oh, this would be cool to do. No, nothing is happening right now. I mean, what were you doing before this hellscape happened?
I mean, like I said, I'm in school, so I was doing school, I was working. My job closed, obviously. It actually just went up for sale, so
Oh, really? What were you doing? What was
I
your
was just
job?
like I was just a waitress. I was just working at a restaurant. So I think a lot of people who are in those similar positions can relate. But yeah, it shut down immediately. So I haven't been working for weeks. I've been appreciating government unemployment though. Thank God I'm lucky enough to
Uh,
get it.
Good for you.
Yeah. But before this, I mean, yeah, I was basically just living my life and now here I am trying to live my life inside. So
Where'd you go to school at?
I go to Brooklyn College.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
It's a good school. They have a good filmmaking program for like a public school. But
And you
yeah.
specifically are going for acting or the
No,
filmmaking? No.
I'm in the film production program. So
How
yeah.
how comfortable were you filming that scene in front of everybody? How long did it take you to get to the point where you're able to actually act? I mean, looking at you, I was uncomfortable because it's like, man, you're very exposed, right?
I was exposed. So I think there's like a few things that kind of go into that. On one hand, I think I'm a pretty like open person in general, so I think that it was maybe easier for me than it would have been for a lot of other people. Like it doesn't really bother me to be like lying around and whatever around people. I don't really mind. But secondly, yeah, a lot of the people, like I said, I knew the set. And a lot of the people on the set, the director, and a lot of the people on the set were actually people that I knew and people that I was close with, which made it like weird on one hand and nice on another level. Like it was uncomfortable because I definitely felt like there was some kind of like personal expectations because these were all people I knew and here I was trying to do this kind of like intimate scene in front of others. But at the same time, it was like, what can you really do? Honestly, I'm not so sure that I was ever able to get like where I would
Comfortable.
wanted to be. I think, I think I did the job and I acted, but looking back, I definitely wish I had like found some more strategies for myself to really relax and kind of try to tap into it more.
But I mean, at the same time, maybe that was the point of your character. You couldn't relax, right? I mean, you weren't supposed to be able to enjoy what you were doing
Yeah,
because what you really wanted was something else.
I was
You
on
didn't
edge. Yeah,
you didn't want your boyfriend. I mean, your dad's in the fucking house, for God's sake. I
yeah,
mean,
you're
that's the
barging in
worst.
on me.
He's not, hey baby, what are you doing in there? It's like the porn music's playing. Thank God they let you cover up when I opened the door there. I was like, man, if they left you exposed, that was like the porn scene right there. You need to
It
cover
was,
up the daughter. You can't have her be exposed like that. I loved watching the little pieces of it come together. Like the most frustrating thing was there's a light or a glare on the door that can't be there, and they couldn't fix it, and they couldn't figure out how to
oh
get
yeah.
rid of it. Right? I mean, that was like it wasn't our acting a problem. It was a concept of where the lights were hitting.
Yeah,
That's just
absolutely.
it's fascinating. It's
That's
fascinating.
honestly that's one thing that I love about filmmaking and I love being on a set. Like sometimes you go on a set and there's so many people and it does seem like unnecessary, but then there'll be a problem and it'll be some like random ass person from down the hall who hasn't actually done anything in like hours that'll like fix the problem. Like it
Yeah.
is that kind of like collaborative, like something's always going wrong thing that I really do like.
I don't know, where are you all students in the same college, Brooklyn College? Is that where you know each
So
other?
the set was like mixed. Some people were out of school, some people were in the school. Some had gone to like BMCC, like Borough Manhattan Community College, which also was like a really good film program before they went to Brooklyn or at the same time. So it was, yeah, it was a lot of like have been or are now like student filmmakers and then just some other people on the set. But yeah.
Hmm. So lost my train of thought. All students, not you don't all go to the same school. I don't know. I love it. I really do. I enjoy it. You had nothing canceled, no acting projects canceled.
During this whole coronavirus thing,
Yeah. Are
yeah, so
you?
that's what?
I'm sorry. Go ahead. I was gonna ask you another question before you even answer the first one.
It's okay. So yeah, that's the thing. Like, I don't, I didn't have any acting projects canceled. There was film productions I was supposed to be working on that got postponed. So rest in peace to everyone who was supposed to be on those sets. But, but yeah, in terms of acting, no. I was literally just thinking, like, I was thinking about what we were gonna be talking about, like when I called you, and I was thinking about how we met, like acting, obviously. Yeah, I haven't even honestly, I haven't signed up. I don't even have a backstage acting profile, which is something
Oh, you
like
don't have one? I have one. You should have one. I think it's free, right?
it is free. There's no reason I shouldn't. I just acting isn't see, this is like the problem, which I think is like a problem with the way that I view stuff in general. To me, acting doesn't seem like something that like I could viably like do, I guess. I don't know, it
Why
seems
not?
I know,
Why
it's
not?
stupid. This
I mean,
is not
honestly,
what
I feel really bad about myself doing it. Like I feel awful about myself doing it. Like I should
why.
be doing something else. Even I feel that way when I write too. Like I should be doing something else. I think it's just part of our society. I don't think they
Like,
want us to do this. And
like
they
I feel
love
like
the
it's
people who
not
succeed.
valuable.
They love the people who succeed doing it, but they hate the people who try to do it. And I think that we ourselves come from that fabric, right? We hate ourselves for wanting to do this thing that seems so pointless to do at the same time. You know what I mean? If you make a film, what are you doing? You're wasting money in the end of the day because it's just an art project. You have to get rid of that and accept that that's your passion, but it really doesn't do anything to make the art project at the end of the day. It's not going to change humanity. Really, it's not going to help unhealthy people become healthy. It's not going to feed starving people or give them water. It's not going to do any of that. It might motivate them to do it, but
I think that does have a lot to do with just the way that we see ourselves as like valuable in society, right? And I do think that there's a lot of jobs that are much more, I guess, like lucrative and where you'll be making a lot more money that like people deem as more valuable that I would say are actually doing a lot more harm than like a job like acting is. You know, that's at least like my interpretation of how things are.
yeah, I mean, you
Yeah,
have oil workers who are actually devastating the planet by making a paycheck, right? I mean, every
exactly.
day
And
they go
that's
to
the
work.
thing. Like when you talk about people like oil workers or whatever, or I guess anybody who's really like in a job that I would say, which are, most things are complicit in like I guess more harmful like systems and stuff. I don't really blame those people because I think this is just the world that we live in, and this is like the things that I would say that we're conditioned to believe are like valuable, and money drives us and makes us want to do things. So I don't blame those workers, just like you know.
I feel
But I
like,
do,
I mean, it's like a
yeah,
beehive in a way. I mean, that's
yeah,
how I felt in the army. When I was in the military for a little under 3 years, and I had this realization that my life was so insignificant that
yeah,
the orders that I got on a daily basis from my sergeant, the E5 that stood 4 or 5 places away from me in formation, was getting information from people so far. We were so far removed. We weren't people anymore. We were just little tiny numbers. And that's what it's like for people who work in factories or oil rigs. Are just so replaceable. It just doesn't matter. I talked to a woman, got really lucky and talked to an artist last night from Hong Kong. And you know how the protests are happening and you have an opinion and you share it. And then all of a sudden you're going to spend the next 18 years of your life in prison because of it. She says friends of hers are gone completely. They were there at one point and sharing and enjoying their existence together. And the next minute, they're wearing an orange jumpsuit because they don't want totalitarian regimes in their life. So we're so lucky that we get to make this decision. And I think Americans in general, maybe just Western society, we want to honor the generations that passed in a way.
yeah.
And I think maybe that's the haunting part is once you do succeed and a large collection of people say you do a good job, I'll buy your stuff. Maybe that does the honoring. But until then, I mean, it's so easy not to succeed.
Yeah, I do think that is like a really large part of like I guess American society and growing up. Both my parents were American, my grandparents were American too. Like, and I'm sure it's like this growing up in other countries as well. But I think like America has a really strong theme of like honor and like tradition and wanting to like our what our values are is like a really strong idea that the country like wants to put forward, and I would say even like propagate kind of in a way and stuff. And so I think that
To a
yeah,
detriment to some degree too. I mean, we have that going
I,
on right now.
I
You know
definitely
what I
agree.
mean? It
Hmm.
just you can have those really strict societies that just want to ruin it for everybody else, I guess. I don't know. Or dictate.
Yeah, I think that's something that is like really instilled, especially in like, I would say older people, like older Americans and things. I know like my grandparents and stuff, especially. I remember the first time I told like my grandfather I was a kid. I always like, I think the first thing that I wanted to be when I was in like kindergarten, I remember like drawing, I wanted to be like an artist. I didn't know what that meant, but that's what I said. And I had a little like paintbrush in my hands. And then when I was younger, I remember like I wanted to be an actress. That was my next like thing that I wanted to be. And I remember telling my grandfather that I wanted to be an actress, and I forget what exactly he said back to me, but just something. I was like 7. I was really young, and
And
he
he,
said
he
something
popped
along.
that balloon, didn't he?
Oh yeah, he scoffed and was basically saying that that would be such like a disappointing thing to do. Like that's not. It's not valuable.
It's
Um,
messed up. I mean, how do you rectify that? Because I do wrestle with that too. I mean, I'm significantly older than you.
yeah,
I've been wrestling it for a long time, and there's a lot of days and months and years that go by that you don't have any success. You know what I
yeah,
mean? Where you have something that you've developed and worked on that's considered worthless, and until you actually do develop something that somebody or enough people consider worthful, you just remain in this category of producing nothing. You know what I
yeah.
mean? And you have to break. I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's a strength of character that you keep doing it because you can't quit. The second project that you do isn't going to get you an Oscar. It might be the 50th or the whatever.
I think too, like, and that's a thing. I think there's a lot of pressure and like obviously I think we all have this feeling that we want to do something like really big and like impactful in the world and stuff, which I think I think is admirable, and I think it's admirable to think that way. But I guess I don't really know how much I believe that one person's like career necessarily in any fields, or even like one person's work. Obviously, that's not true, but can really have such a huge impact as to like change the world, I guess. And so I do think that, just the way that we
Yeah.
interact with people on like a daily basis and stuff is much more important than a career that we choose or whatever, in terms of how successful we are and how much good we're doing in the
It's
world. But
fascinating if you think about the fact that in the last 100 years, we've had so much advancement that we didn't have prior to that. And
yeah,
normal society is just incremental pieces of advancement per generation. We had an explosion of possibility. Before the World War I, there was no flying, there was no Wright brothers, there was no electricity flowing as freely as it is right now. I'm not sure when Edison actually plugged everything in. But man, things are crazy right now. This is crazy to think that we can look at you. I can look at you and we can have a conversation. I don't know where you are. I assume you're in New York
I'm
City, or you're
yeah,
in
yeah,
Brooklyn. Okay. Yeah,
very
I mean, obviously you're about 5 miles away, so we could see each other, but I mean, we don't have to. We can do Zoom.
yeah. I know.
It's so fantastic. I mean, I don't know. This incrementalism is gone, isn't it? Because we're gonna explode.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, here I am saying, like, oh, let me be an actress. It doesn't matter what you do, but thank God people are like scientists and engineers, so I can have a computer.
I know, so that we can have computers. Thank God there's farmers still and people that are engineering the best way to grow food. I mean, it's interesting because you do complain, but then you think there are people in other areas of the world that don't have any of this, that are
Yeah,
suffering so badly. Not really, though. I mean, they're living a life that potentially they don't know any difference of, but they die
I'm,
young and painfully and diseased, and we let that happen every single day without caring.
I do think it's really easy to get stuck in like. I mean, I say it's really easy. I think it is like the way that we live. Like it, we do live in like a global world in a way, but we're also so disconnected. I think from every other society that's not in like our literal direct like vicinity. That
Yeah,
I would say that on an individual level, we're not really living globally. Like as
you're a traveler. You've been around, haven't you?
I've been like a few places.
Where's your favorite place?
So I did when I was in high school. I was lucky enough I did like a foreign exchange thing actually. So I was living
Oh,
in Hungary for like 10 months.
Hungary.
Um, yeah, which was
Nice.
random, but
When
yeah, and
this that those countries are very interesting to me because they had a switch, didn't they? They went from Eastern Bloc Soviet to
yeah,
something else. I've had an opportunity to talk to a lot of artists from there, writers from countries like that, and they talk about this. I don't know, the older generation misses communism. It's crazy.
yeah. It's funny.
They miss it. Like it was
Yeah,
better then. We liked each other. We got along. We knew who to trust.
I think that's natural for any generation to kind of like long for what they grew up for in a way, you know. And I think too, like maybe I don't know, it could be so off base here, but I think that is kind of like an attraction that people have in general to like to live in like a smaller society almost, which is something that I've been actually thinking about a lot recently, kind of been drawn to. Like living now, especially like you live in New York as well, like it's such a big, we live in such like a big society, you know, such like a big world. Where yeah, maybe you're connected to the people in your neighborhood or the people in your family, your friends, whatever, but like it's not that like that small necessarily like communal feeling that maybe something like yeah, I don't know, like communism would have given you. I don't know anything, but
I mean, everybody was like against each other, right? Everybody was like looking to rat on each other so they can get
yeah,
up on the ladder. I mean, maybe that's what it was. They could just trust each other because they would rat each other out or something. I don't know.
yeah.
It's odd. I mean, they talk about, how stuff like that steamrolls, how you allow things to happen because it feels comfortable and okay, and you're not the one that's being persecuted. And then
Yeah,
all of a sudden you're the one that's being persecuted, and it's a problem. All the old ones that are left are the ones that didn't get persecuted because there are stories of millions of people that got relocated to Siberia,
yeah,
millions of people that got picked up from their homes and said, go away. And they all died. You know what I mean? They were eating horrible things to stay alive and they starved to death and they didn't have water or warm things. This is Siberia. So, I mean, the old people are the ones that are like, hey, they didn't take me. I'm special. So it's really, really messed
yeah.
up.
I do sometimes. That's another thing that I think is kind of interesting. Like sometimes I feel like people who succeed in like systems or societies that are really kind of like dog on dog, like against each other, and that can actually be super like violent and painful, like often tend to like support those same systems because like it feels like I won, so it's like a good thing. I don't know. So
It's interesting. It's rage, right? It's built on
yeah,
this thing where you did me wrong, so I'm going to kill you. And then there's this thing of we're right and everybody else who has a different idea from us is wrong because we want to, we're not going to listen to you. We want to be right. So they kill
yeah,
them too. The Bolsheviks were some bad people. God
yeah.
almighty, they were so bad.
It's funny, like I like to talk shit. I like to talk about basically everything, but I sometimes feel like I don't know that much, like to talk about, I guess, and stuff. And I don't know, like I'm listening to you talk right now, and I just get like a sense from you that you know about like that maybe you've been like a history buff kind of or things like this, and that maybe it's
I
something
do a
you like.
lot of research. I do a lot of research.
That's
And I
yeah.
let
That was like I was wondering like how do you like what do you read, like what do you look at online and stuff, like what's your like what are you consuming?
me consuming. Oh God, I can't consume anything right now. I am really bored with everything.
Really?
Yeah, I can't stand it. I've been watching some old movies. I watched who was the Joker? The actor who was the Joker? Heath Ledger? No, what's his name?
Legend, yeah.
No, the other one, the new guy.
Oh, walking.
Joaquin Phoenix. I
Yeah.
watched a bunch of his movies recently. I'm
Really?
Still Here. Hmm?
No, I said,
Uh,
would you say?
I'm Still Here. That was his mockumentary where he was going to be an R&B artist.
Really? I've never seen it. I've never even
Oh,
heard of it.
it's so ridiculous, and it's like supposedly a mockumentary, but I got a sense watching it that he legitimately was doing this stuff thinking that he was going to be a great rapper or something, because he kind of is the same in other movies. What was the movie Vice? Inherent Vice? Did you see that?
Yeah, my ex actually loved that movie, which always like makes me think of that one time I remember.
Inherent Vice. I mean, it's such an interesting character,
Yeah.
but the movie is so convoluted and it doesn't really make a lot of sense. I love that director though.
Who's
Um,
directed it?
the guy who directed oh God Almighty, why
I'm
does
really
my
bad at directing, so even if you say, I probably won't know.
no, I know it. It's on the tip of my tongue. Oh God. What am I looking up? Inherent Vice?
Vice director.
Yeah, I know his name. He's married to a Maya Rudolph.
Yeah,
Does
yeah,
that help
yeah.
at all? His name is C.
I know.
Thomas, or no, his name is Paul Thomas Anderson, right?
Oh yeah.
And
See, that's a name I
Magnolia,
know, but yeah, I don't know things. Like I don't know directors. I don't know what movies they make. That's something I want to get like better at memorizing.
Magnolia is a great movie. Have you ever seen Magnolia? It's got Tom Cruise in it.
I never saw Magnolia either. I know that's big.
You know what's cool about you is that I could play all these movies for you and you would just be in heaven for the first time because they are
Oh yeah,
magnificent movies. I mean, they're
I have
really good
yeah,
movies.
I have this huge list on my computer right now. It's funny, like one of my some of my friends actually they started doing like in the beginning of quarantine this like film club thing, where they started like streaming movies and stuff. And so I was doing that for a little bit, and it kind of put me. I'm on this like kind of like movie binge right now. I have this huge list on my computer of like all these like classic almost movies that I've never seen that I want to watch. So I'm like slowly checking them off, which is fun.
Yeah. I want to get through the AFI Top 100 or whatever it's called, that list of the best movies ever. And I always
Oh
get
yeah,
stuck because the 1940s and 1930s are
I
the worst time
I
in
can't
cinematic
do it.
history.
Sorry.
They're so ridiculously bad. It's like, I don't want to watch this shit. I get through, I fall asleep all the time. I'm like, oh, does that count? Can I cross it off? Is it done now?
Have you seen Citizen Kane?
Yes. I
I
made
feel like
myself watch it. I made
that's the
myself.
pinnacle of like movies like that.
Now ask me questions about it. I'll 100% not be able to answer. I don't know anything. I mean, it's such an odd movie because there's a flashback that goes back to when he was a baby.
Yeah,
Kind of explains the the rosebud or whatever it is, the being the
yeah,
sled, and that's when it loses me every time. I don't know.
yeah.
I
I
just
swear I've seen
consider
that movie. Yeah, I've
what
seen it
about
like 4 times, and I
four
can't tell you
times?
anything about it.
Did you
Yeah,
watch it all the way through?
yeah, I've definitely seen it all the way through. I definitely fell asleep at certain points, like all these things. But
So you
I've
might
watched.
not have seen it all the way through because I'm not even sure if I've watched it all the way through or not. But I don't want to watch it again. It's
Yeah,
really boring. It's not great. If you're a cinematic film buff, and I'm not talking about storytelling because it doesn't have a great story, does it? It's just kind of normal now.
I mean,
It's been
I don't remember story, like I said.
I mean, I think you know the story because it's part of pop culture. It's part of the zeitgeist, right?
Yeah.
It's been recycled into The Simpsons. It's been recycled over here. Like you might even have heard the story verbatim, word for word, and not even realized it. You know what I mean? That's how recyclable Hollywood shit is. But yeah, it's so bad. Have you seen Shawshank Redemption?
No.
No.
I've never seen Shawshank Redemption.
Somebody needs to just tie you down and put
Literally,
movies on.
what else did during this time anyways? This is like,
What have you been doing? What have you been doing? I have been re-editing a novel. I'm like halfway done, thank God.
good for you. That's awesome.
But I also have no other life. This is what I was doing before. Like I've been quarantining myself for 8 years. So
that's my favorite, that's my favorite category of memes and like internet shit right now is the people who are just like dragging themselves for never having gone outside the house before this. Like
good. I'm up. I'm trained. I'm not missing nothing.
On your resume, this is like your skill set. Like being
can be alone and self-motivated for very long periods of time.
I've been trying to edit like the same. I have this one old project. It's so funny. I had this like thought that came into my head. I've definitely made like a lot of films and had productions that I'm like so ashamed of.
How's your brother feel about it? Is he involved? You're living with your brother, right? Am I right about that? Why do I know that? Did you tell me that?
I was staying with my brother for a little bit. I'm not with my brother anymore, but I was staying with him for the past like month or so. So we were together, which was actually really nice. I kind of miss him now that I'm not with him anymore, but yeah.
Why'd you move back home? Why'd you go back to Brooklyn?
I don't know. I needed to be back because I don't usually stay with him, but I went to stay with him just like during this whole period. We thought we'd like quarantine together and stuff. It was actually really fun, but then I don't know. I needed to get back to like my regular life, you know, as much as I could, and just back in like my regular house and stuff. So it feels better now. But
what kind of place do you live in? Do you have roommates?
I live in an apartment. I have 3 roommates. It's just me and my other roommate here now. So it is what it is. Yeah.
That would be awful. I remember having roommates in college. It was not good.
I know.
Not good at all.
I've been trying to edit. I think, like I was saying, like I shot this one film in December. It was like a final for like a project, but I thought I was gonna put like a lot of work into it. I thought I was gonna be really happy about it. I remember my girlfriend at the time, she put like a bunch of money into it. Like it was a lot. People put a lot of work into it.
That was not a cheap production. I don't know what she paid.
It wasn't a cheap production. And like my actors were amazing. The set, like the shoot was okay. I wasn't happy with the way that I ran it at all. And then I made like what really like messed me up though was the edit. Like I did an edit of it. The first edit was horrible. And then the second edit was also not great, but I just sent it out to everybody anyways. And so like the disappointment and like shame that I feel about that project is like so heavy. And I'm like actively hiding from the people that were on the set, like on social media and everything. And so I'm trying to re-edit it so I can send it out and just like have a clear conscience with all the people who put so much work into it. But that's what I've been trying to do.
Man, I got that. I wrote a novel. I wanted to finish my first novel before my kids were born, so I did. And I had my wife edit it and another person read it, and I wanted one more edit on it. I got upset and I published it. And I was so embarrassed. It was really bad. There's lots and lots and lots of errors. And it's like, that's what I'm working on now. It just never feels like it stops. It just keeps going and going and going. It's like,
there's always disappointment in like your own work and stuff. And even like right now I have to like shoot my thesis film for college, you know, for school to graduate. And I'm working on the script right now, and I started off so excited about it, and I'm just so like, it's so in shambles right now, and I'm supposed to have like a final draft by the end of the weekend. And I just like, I don't know, like my friend was telling me like, just don't give up on it, even though like it's so easy to start like a script or start a writing or whatever and just be like, I don't like this and want to move on to the next idea. But like you liked it for a reason at first, and I know that if I just dedicate myself to it, like I can't come up with something that, you know,
it's a script.
It's a script. Yeah, it's just like a short film script, like 10, 12 pages. God,
that's my favorite thing in the entire world is writing, and also from scratch like that, not having like an idea of where you're going.
That's amazing. So the fact that you wrote a novel is incredible. That's something that like
I've written 2 right now, and the second one's actually 3, and then in between I have like 4 or 5 novellas that I need to publish. I'm just going to do it myself. This September, I'm going to publish the novel that I'm working on right now. I'm going to publish a novella that might be a novel by the time I finish a rewrite on it, and maybe 2 collections. I'm just going to put 4 things out on Amazon in September and see what happens. You know?
That's yeah, you should just put it out there, you know? And that's the thing, like when you put something out there, like I feel like you want to lean towards like perfectionism and getting it perfect and having it be everything you wanted, but like I don't know if we'll ever reach that place. So the fact that you're just putting it out there is
I
great.
got taught a lesson by a publisher called Brick Moon. They buy my stuff. They buy my short fiction. They produce it for their podcast, and I love it. I mean, they mess up. They mispronounce words that they shouldn't say like they do, and it
Yeah.
makes me mad. Oh God, guys, why don't you ask me how to say that? I wrote a story about the origination of the chicken, the domestication of the chicken. You know, these
Okay.
2 people, they survive a tsunami, and you know they have to survive, so they blah 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 whatever. And I named the baby, the kid that they have, Itty Bao, because the adult's name is Bao. So Itty Bao, because they're Vietnamese. It's just I loved it so much. And the person who I don't know how this escaped anybody's notice, but he pronounced it IT Bao. And it just made me the entire story is IT Bao. And I'm just like, why?
Ruined everything that you
Everything.
ever like pictured. That's so funny. So yeah, that's something else I wanted to know. That's actually interesting. I'm definitely gonna look at your stuff more after this. But like your novel that you just finished now, like can I ask what's it about? Like what's the premise?
It's it's actually about a virus. It's about an alien thing that crash lands on Earth. I wrote that prequel already. I'm probably not going to publish that for another year or so. It's interesting. It tells a story about this guy who wants to resurrect his former owner. He's a slave through mathematics, and he does. And she's an AI, and then he dies as punishment for doing blah blah blah. And she resurrects him with mathematics from actually the afterlife. So the novel that I'm writing right now is actually the 3rd part of this whole thing, kind of like George Lucas did part 4 and then started us out in 1977.
Yeah.
The story that I'm writing right now takes place about 100 years from now, and it's about those 2 beings having crash landed on Earth. A second part of the story has happened, and then this part, which is they're talking about, is ridiculous. Did that make sense?
I mean, it kind of did. What I get from that is that you're big into like sci-fi, like fantasy, like vibes. That's what I get from it.
Yeah, it's difficult because you really just want to get some good stuff in there too.
Yeah.
Don't want to be completely science fiction.
I
But
think
that's
people, yeah. I know like myself included, like in the past, people can get really turned off by the genre of like sci-fi, which I think is funny. Do you agree with me or no?
yeah, I mean it's horrible. It's horrible. People don't
You
like to
get it.
admit
Why
they
do you think
like it.
people are so like unattracted by it?
I don't know. I think it's just, guys with glasses, they don't like, the dorkiness, the geek syndrome. Yeah. I mean, those are the guys that get picked on in school. I guess I don't understand it either because that's money making.
Yeah.
The World of Warcraft game franchise is $1 billion a year money making organization. And it's
People
got
love it.
dwarves and whatever the hell else in there. You know what I mean? Star Wars, trillions and I mean billions of dollars going into things. So I mean,
Yeah.
it's not what you want to do is not ridiculous either because people make a living at it somehow. You know what I mean? Making stuff.
It's funny, like I said, I'm definitely like I've fallen into the camp of being turned off by sci-fi, like fantasy too. But there's a few like shows, movies of that category that I love. And one, which is funny, I literally just wanted to talk about this. One movie that I think honestly, if I had to say one movie that's like inspires most like art that I make, most of like my happy moments in life. It sounds so dramatic, I swear to God, but it's Avatar, like James Cameron Avatar. It's a
It's so
movie
much
that
money.
it's a movie that I don't think is that good of a movie. And honestly, like I have a hard time watching it. But for me, it's like it's the world of that, like I forget what it's even called. What are their names? The blue people?
Oh God, I don't know. The
I don't know.
Avatarians. Aren't they the
Yeah.
Avatarians?
The
Don't they?
world yeah. It's like something
Pandora is the world though, right? Isn't it called
Pandora.
Pandora? Yeah.
Yeah, Pandora. The planet of Pandora, like the visuals of like the glow in the dark forest, like that is the most enchanting thing I've ever seen in my life. And honestly, like I like to draw and like paint and stuff, and like even in my writings, like poetry when I do it sometimes, like those are visuals that like I picture and like really inspire me and make me feel like happy. I swear to God. And I think that's what like fantasy can do for people. It's really crazy.
Do you read? You don't read fantasy though. You're.
I don't in the past when I was like younger, when I was like a kid, I liked to read when I was a kid, and I would read stuff like Harry Potter. I loved Harry Potter when I was like younger. But yeah, but now I don't. No. I'm watching Game of Thrones now, actually, which I thought I'd never watch. My brother convinced me to start during quarantine, and for what it is, I like it. Like I accept like the fantasy, like the trope to me, which my brother's gonna be so angry if he ever sees this, but he gets like actually like triggered about it. Like this is the trope of Game of Thrones. It's like there's someone's about to get killed in the woods, and like there's no way they're not gonna about to be stabbed by the enemy, and then someone comes up from behind them and like shoves a spear like out of nowhere through like the person who's gonna kill them's like back, and that's like the fantasy like World of Warcraft like whatever trope.
Yeah.
Which is like some people would see that over and over and be so turned off by it, but I just accept it and like enjoy the show.
There's a scream that's in all of these movies and shows. It's called the Wilhelm scream. You've heard it before. It's like a thousand. You've heard it, right? That's what turns me off because you'll hear it. It's like, oh, that's that one sound clip being played since the 1950s. You can't have somebody scream fresh on a thing. That's a trope I can't stand. But yeah, you're right. It's like camera angles. Oh, you didn't see that guy in the woods? Do you guys know how woods work? You're not, things really aren't obscured. It's really kind of wide open for like hundreds of feet.
Like,
you might see some trees, but you're really not hiding with the spear. You're not doing that. Yeah, so it's ridiculous. It does pull you out of the story a lot. Game of Thrones, I guess I shouldn't talk about the end though. Whoever casted that show has good taste in women. That's all I know.
Good taste in women?
Yeah.
Honestly, Daenerys Stormborn is officially one of the most beautiful women I've ever seen in my life. I was blown away the first time I saw her.
The internet fell in love with her, and she refused to do nude scenes after that first or second season. She didn't know that she could say no. She didn't know that she could say no. She thought she was obligated to be naked, and she felt abused because of it. Like she didn't know she had a choice to say no.
I had no idea about that. That's so funny. I don't know why I'm surprised. I guess I would think that going into that show, and I'm sure she had like a similar feeling, like I would expect that, you know, I would expect that like, yeah, the hot girl's gonna do nude scenes. There's gonna be dragons. You're gonna take her clothes off. That's the show. That's very much.
She was hot though, and she was normal looking too. Like she was a normal woman. She wasn't like Victoria's Secret model thin either. There's been things on Reddit, you know, that show her actual body. I mean, she was hot as hell, but you know, she was a normal woman. It's nice that they're actually doing that now. You can go ahead and be sexy on camera because, you know, you're sexy. You're not skinny model sexy.
Yeah. It's dope. I love that. Another thing too, like I love horror. I don't know if you like horror.
I can get into it. There's been a few horror movies that have come out recently that have really done it for me, like Cabin in the Woods, I think.
Yeah, I don't like.
Did you see that? You don't like Cabin in the Woods.
Like
which ones are you into?
I like Crucify Me. I love Paranormal Activity. I think everyone hates on the movies. I think
is that the one? There's it's the found footage.
It's like it's the found footage in like these suburban homes of like the camera is just showing like what the families do and getting like freaked the fuck out. And what I love about it is like there's horror movies that I like that have like these plots. But what Paranormal Activity does is like it'll literally just show like an empty room and it'll like scare the fuck out of you. At least like I know a lot of people don't think it's scary, but for me, like just the power, it literally harnesses the power of your imagination in a way that I think no other horror movies or like movies really do. Like it's not.
You talking about it, and I'm realizing I do in fact love horror movies, but what I don't love is getting stuck watching one that's not good. You know what I mean? Yeah. And you know what really sucked is the last Halloween movie that what's his name, Danny McBride wrote.
I didn't even watch Halloween.
You don't watch Halloween?
I watched one of the Halloween movies, but I couldn't like tell you about it. I don't know.
So what did you go for in Paranormal Activities is good. I like the found footage. I loved
Blair Witch Project?
Blair Witch Project. God, it was so good. It was so fucking good.
Footage to me is like that's one of my favorite movie things like of all time. I love it. And that's like, it's funny because I think that's what I tried to make like my own like little stupid like found footage movie. I think you commented it on YouTube. Like,
I did actually. I really appreciate it. I love it so much when somebody does something like that. I mean, it's hitting that send button is so hard. You know what I mean? You make something, it comes from your heart and soul, and you put it out there. And whatever your intention is, obviously you're bored. You know, you want to be doing something.
Bored in the house. Bored in the house.
It's so cool. Where are you from originally? Are you from Brooklyn? Are you from New York?
I'm from upstate, so it's like right now my family lives in Albany, but I grew up in like it's called Newark Valley. It's like rural, like really rural, like upstate.
Mm.
Like farms, all that shit. I'm not from a farm, but there's a lot of farms. It's like redneck country.
Hmm. I
um,
know redneck country. Yeah.
yeah, and then like my dad moved to Albany, and then like a few years later, my mom moved out there too, and now my brother lives there too. So all my family's like in Albany.
Oh wow! So you were just in Albany.
Yeah, so I was in Albany. Mm-hmm.
Interesting. Oh, now you're home.
But yeah.
So what are your plans for the rest of quarantine?
I don't know. It's really funny. This is kind of like a shout out to my friend. So I have this friend, Aubrey. He's been like really good, just like a talking partner, I would say, during quarantine, just like a really close friend to me and like giving me a lot of ideas and stuff and like supporting my ideas. And I was telling him the other day, like, he's like probably inspired me more than like anybody recently. Like he's the kind of person to really just like put himself out there, I would say. Like he knows so many people, like he has so many friends, like he's always like putting people onto jobs and stuff and just like not being afraid to make things. And I don't like I'm talking about him now because like I guess he's inspired me to want to just like make more stuff and like just put myself out there more in general. So I don't know what exactly I want to do for the rest of quarantine, but I guess I'm really just trying to like I have like schoolwork and finals and shit now that I'm focusing on, but I don't know. I really just want to be making more things that I'm not afraid to, like you said, just kind of hit send on and stuff. And
Just
I
do
brought
it.
him up because he kind of like inspired me in that way. But
What I
yeah.
liked about what you did is you can transition it to something else. Like you have the horror vibe, and you could obviously continue with that because there's no definitive end to that.
Yeah.
You can continue riffing on it as long as you want, but you were doing a vlog too. You know, you were kind of
Yeah.
doing the traditional talk to the camera thing, and you have the type of face that people want to look at while it talks. That
Thank
might
you.
not be that might not be a totally bad thing to continue. I mean,
Yeah.
talking about the paranormal aspects of living, I guess, which I guess we could have gotten into because it sounds like you kind of do have a thing for ghosts.
I do. I'm a
Yeah.
nerd girl. Like about all that stuff, I love it.
What about
But
ghosts does it for you? Have you ever seen a ghost?
so, oh my god, you should. If you wanted to end, you shouldn't have started. I swear to God, I could really go in. But no, I think like I'll just be quick. Like the number one reason, growing up, it was always like my mom who got me interested in like ghosts, and I don't even know if she'd want me talking about this, but like aliens and like stuff like that in general. I remember she listened to this podcast, like this radio show all the time when I was a kid. Some people went to church. I listened to this like ghost podcast like with my mom all the time. It was called like Coast to Coast, and it
Oh
was
God
about.
Almighty, that's my favorite thing in the entire world.
Are you serious?
Yeah, public radio. When I was in Gainesville, I
Yeah,
delivered pizzas at a 24-hour pizza place. Flip on that, man. I love it. I love it. It's one of my
yeah,
favorite shows ever. It's on YouTube now, but it sucks.
really.
It
It's
sucks in
crazy.
comparison to the radio. I thought the radio version was just so good. And what was his name, the original guy? Because it's not him anymore.
I don't even know. It's been years since I
Yeah.
listened to
But
it.
oh God, yeah, you got me excited. Obviously, I love
But
Coast to
yeah,
Coast.
no, that's the thing. Like she would listen to that radio show, like, and that was my like spiritual teaching almost as a kid. Like it sounds stupid, and it did scare me. I will say, like it had a lot of negative effects. Like as a kid, I was horrified. I was really, really petrified of like ghosts and all that shit for like years. I'm kind of out of it now. Like I can still get freaked out, but I was scared to be in my house, like all this stuff. But yeah, so she'd always put on shows they talk about like aliens, they talk about like doppelganger spirits. I remember one time like we were going to my aunt's house and she had the radio on and it was playing Coast to Coast, and there's this episode about like doppelgangers, which is like the shadow version of you. It's like horrifying the way they were talking about it. And I remember we were like in my aunt's house and like I was upstairs and I was like petrified from the radio show. I remember I just screamed like bloody murder because I swore that I saw like my doppelganger or some shit. I was like young. I was like 8 years old. But so it was like from a young age I've been really into it. I just think it's just fun and it adds
Yeah.
like another layer of like living to me that's like really interesting. Like just, you know,
It
a
does.
whole
Yeah. I mean, you could easily explain things with the reasonable explanation,
yeah.
or you could dig a
Yeah.
little, and that, it becomes interesting. That's what I love about speculative fiction. I mean,
Yeah.
I love messing up history too, like getting historical events wrong a little bit and figuring out what would happen if they're just a little bit different. And hauntings and stuff like that goes in that category as well.
Yeah.
So are we going to be writing a paranormal screenplay?
I would love to, and I think that's why I like Paranormal Activity because it was really low budget. They had like no money and they made millions, which I don't really care about that much. But the fact that they were able to
You
make
care about millions.
well, I do, but I'm saying like when I'm making a script, I'm not like, oh, is this gonna make that's not really what goes into like the creative process. I would say so much.
I mean, you want to do something marketable, I think. I mean, it's hard. My little brother, he's an evil guy, but he's an artist. And he loves the idea of never making a single penny or showing anybody his art.
I'm not into that. It's not me.
So I'm like, dude, I mean, you say, I don't want, it's like the dude that goes to the gym or doesn't go to the gym because he doesn't want to get swole or whatever. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, I don't mean that I don't care about money because I definitely care about money.
Like you're gonna be putting money into projects and you're putting money into education too.
Yeah.
You're investing in you.
I'm saying like I'm not inspired by Paranormal Activity because it made millions because there's a lot of other movies that made millions, but I'm inspired by it because it was so low budget and it was so able to like captivate people. Like you can make scary shit on like a really low budget, and to me that's like the creepiest. So it's cool, and I would definitely love to do something like that on like a bigger scale someday.